Mikaila, Ulmer, she's the founder and CEO of Me and the Bees Lemonade. And what we're going to do is first start out with the video, and then we're going to have her come up.
This is the story of Me and the Bees. Like every good story, it's got a hero, a mission, and a happily ever after.
I will be back on the job market in 7 months, so I hope she is hiring.
In the making.
It all started in an exotic faraway land called Austin, Texas, where a little girl dreamed of changing the world. Meet Mikaila. One day when she was just 4 years old, Mikaila was stung by a bee. Twice. After that, the sight of a bee made her weak in the knees. But her parents were wise in a plan they did devise. We encouraged her to overcome her fears by learning all about our honeybee helpers. Turns out bees are our littlest and biggest links in our food chain, and they need our help to stay busy, healthy, and productive. That's when Mikaila discovered that a bee in need is a friend indeed. That's when Mikaila decided to help save the bees.
To make a difference in the world and protect our pollinators, I did what anyone would do. I opened a lemonade stand. Inspired by my great-granny Helen's lemonade recipe, I make lemonade sweetened with honey that tastes good and does good. Sharing profits with organizations working hard to help our honeybees. Meet Me and the Bees, a social good lemonade company.
That was the beginning of just the beginning.
It's a deal.
Since good stories are meant to be shared, Mikaila took hers on the road, hitting events with the highest density of cultural leaders who could spread the word and inspire new believers. Now, Mikaila is doing more than selling lemonade, she's leading a movement. And the buzz is building. With distribution stretching from coast to coast, new retailers popping up every day, and a growing list of dedicated partners, the future is looking beautiful.
Thank you.
Because just like the honeybees, we are at our best when we work together.
Let's make the next chapter of Me and the Bees even sweeter. Join the hive, spread the buzz, and become a bee-liever. The end.
Awesome. Okay. So thank you everyone for coming. I know I'm still on Austin time, so it's pretty early for me. And I thought by being in New York, I'd get out of having to wake up early for school. But my name is Mikaila Ulmer, and I'm 14 years old. I'm from Austin, Texas. And I am a student, I'm a bee ambassador, and I'm the founder and CEO of Me and the Bees Lemonade. So before we get started, I have kind of a little icebreaker for you. So I know some of you, when you sat down, saw some little pencils. And so I just wanted to figure out how many of you know. So could you guess how many pencil stubs you think end up in landfills every year? Like the tips of pencils. If anyone wants to raise their hand and just give a guess. Nobody has an idea? Just random number. 100,000, okay. 1 million. Billion, okay. 2 billion. There might be prizes, so you need some motivation. Any other ideas? 3.5 billion, okay. So there's about 15 million pencil stubs that end up in landfills every year. And one solution to that is a really cool pencil. And instead of a pencil stub, it actually has like a seed capsule. So you can actually just take the pencil, and when you're done with it, you plant the whole pencil in the ground, and it grows into a bee-friendly flower. So those are the little pencils that were at your seeds. So before we get started, I'd like to thank you all for coming. Thank you for inviting me. Usually, when we do the video, there's some sort of technical difficulty, so I usually have some bee puns or like bee jokes in in my head, but the tech team is great here, so thank you very much. So I'm going to be talking about dreaming like a kid. And so you might be thinking, okay, wait, but we're supposed to be thinking about how to find your purpose. And so I kind of reworded it to something that I liked a little bit better, which is dreaming like a kid. Because the way I think about dreaming like a kid is dreaming or thinking without obstacles. And so when you do that, it's easier to find your purpose or find your motivation or find your passion. So a lot of people ask me my story and how I got to where I am, speaking in front of all you amazing people today. But it started when I was 4.5 years old, and I was in Austin, Texas, and I got stung by 2 bees in 1 week. And this was after signing up for this thing that's in Austin called the business fair, and it's where kids can get a booth for like $20 and start a stand. And so I signed up for this, like a lot of my other kindergarten peers, and I didn't know what product I was going to create and sell. And so over the summer, I got stung by 2 bees. I was terrified of them. Has anyone gotten stung by a bee before? Okay, how'd it feel? Okay, exactly. And so after that, and there were 2 different incidents, I actually thought I was going to get stung by the bees every day for the rest of my life. Like I thought that was going to be normal. And so my parents said, okay, before you're afraid of the bees, why don't you do some research on them? And doing that research, which was like animated videos and picture books, I found out that the bees are really important pollinators and that they're dying at an alarming rate. And I learned that without the bees, our food supply would collapse, and that 1 out of every 3 bites of the food that I eat, and you eat, comes from a bee-pollinated plant. And so today, just some facts, is that beekeepers in America reported that they lost 42% of their hives last year, and that's on top of the 30% reduction the year before. So it's a increase in decreasing bee populations, which is something that I realized, and I thought, okay, if I didn't know about this, if a lot of my friends didn't know about this, why can't I share it? And so that's when I started to realize that I had to thank my pollinators. So a lot of the fruits that I enjoyed eating and the foods that I eat every day, like the fruits and veggies, and even like my pizza or my burger, is somehow linked to the bees. And so I took me getting stung by the bees, and I was like, okay, whatever I do for the business fair, I want it to be linked to the bees, or I want to help save them. And then later on this summer, I got a cookbook from my great-granny Helen. So she lives in South Carolina, and she loved to cook, and she had a lot of cookbooks, but the one that she sent me was this like gray, tattered cookbook, and the like spine was falling off, and she had her little recipes inside, and a lot of the ingredients were ingredients that I had never even heard of. And so I took the cookbook, we were thumbing through it, and we found a recipe for flaxseed lemonade. And so I realized, okay, what if I take the flaxseed lemonade, and instead of sweetening with sugar, I sweeten with honey, and that could be my business for the business fair. So that was my idea. And my mom had me dress up in this bee suit for marketing, and I would sell my lemonade, and then afterwards I donated a portion of the proceeds that I made to organizations that were helping the bees. Let's see. So I did that every year, twice a year, and one thing that would always happen is that I sold out within the first couple of hours. And that was something that bothered me, because it didn't matter how many lemons I squeezed or how late I stayed past my bedtime, I would always run out of lemonade. And so I wanted to figure out, how can I talk about the bees and teach people about the bees even more? So in 3rd grade, I started doing like little workshops at schools and organizations and I would like teach kids about pollinators. They could plant their own bee-friendly flower, and they would learn about the bees. And so I did one presentation at Whole Foods for their pollinator week, and they said, okay, if you can find a way to bottle your product, we'll carry it in our store. And so I realized, okay, maybe this can be more than me doing workshops and selling a lemonade stand, but an actual product. And so my parents didn't have any experience in the beverage industry. I didn't, of course. My dad didn't. And so we needed help. And we asked people in the community, we asked other local companies of how do you start a beverage company? How do you get a place to produce your lemonade? What's a commercial kitchen? And all that. And so we figured out how to bottle it, even though it was really small scale, and we were selling it in like 2 Whole Foods and a couple other local restaurants in Austin, and I would like deliver it on my wagon and get my like PO and have them sign it. And so that was like my first taste of like having business. And so after a while, we realized that we kind of outgrew the space, and so we needed more funding in order to grow the company a little bit more. So we pitched the company on Shark Tank, me and my dad, and then we landed a deal with Mr. Damon John. And that's kind of when it started taking off, and so we increased from 1 flavor, which was the mint, to 4 different flavors. So we had the mint, which was the original, the ginger, which my brother actually came up with, the prickly pear, which, how many of you know what a prickly pear is? Have you heard of one? Okay. So it's a fruit that grows mainly in the South, and we have a lot of them all over the place in Texas. So I kind of decided to do that as a tribute to Texas, and then the iced tea, because my great-granny Helen and my grandparents all live in North and South Carolina, and they drink a lot of iced tea. So that's kind of the flavors that we came up with, and I realized, okay, so if my parents don't want me drinking a lot of sugar, then I'm guessing a lot of other kids' parents don't want them drinking a lot of sugar either. So I wanted to make sure that it had like ingredients that other kids could drink, like no high fructose corn syrup, and all like ingredients that you can pronounce so that other kids can drink it just like me. And so the business started booming. We got into more stores across America, and I did not realize that it could get this far. It went from just being in Texas to being in the South region to being in multiple states across the United States. And so we also got press coverage, and then something happened. So I remember it like it was yesterday, but my parents had sat me down after my brother Jacob had gone to sleep, and they said that after we'd gone on Shark Tank, after we got all this press coverage, that there was another company that had a name similar to ours that wanted us to either pay a couple $1 million to borrow it or change it altogether. And so as a 10-year-old, I didn't really have a couple $1 million to spend on a name. And so we realized maybe we're going to have to change it. And I'd been sung by bees before a couple of times, but I'd never been sung by lawyers. And so that was something that we had to deal with. And so that's when I learned a first really big lesson, which was to ask for help. So when doing a presentation at Team One in California, I shared with them our dilemma. And so we shared that we needed help changing our brand and that we didn't really know where to start, because I personally didn't want to change my name from B-Sweet, because that was the name that I had come up with when I was 4, and I thought that that was what made my company, and that's what made my company successful. But we still needed help changing the name, and that's when I kind of realized that, okay, we're gonna need to work on that. And so they all pitched in, came up with 350 names, and we realized, okay, we're gonna have to narrow all these 350 names to just one. And so that's when I learned another lesson, which is that it's not the product you sell, but the story you tell. I realized that that no matter what name the company is, that the brand is still me, and it's still that you selling your product or your service or whatever. And so it doesn't matter what name you have, that it's still you. And so in, I think it was 2016, our name changed from B-Sweet Lemonade to Me and the Bees. But I really, really loved the new name because it had the date that we started, and it also had the bees, and it still kept a lot of the personality from my old logo. And so from that name, we realized, okay, so we changed the name, we had our new branding, but we had to make sure everyone started calling it B-Sweet. I mean, Me and the Bees instead of B-Sweet. So we served it at the White House. That was like the first stop. And so that was like over 10,000 bottles of Me and the Bees. And then we announced that we were changing the name on Good Morning America. And then we even won a Jay Sheot Award for the brand change. But what I'm trying to get across is that it's really important to turn an ouch into a positive. And so I did Band-Aids because the ouch was me getting stung by the bees, and I turned it into me realizing that they needed to be saved. And so one thing that I like to call these ouches are like lemons, because lemons are pretty sour. They're not great if you eat them by yourself, like if you eat them by themselves. But when you mix them with the right ingredients, it becomes lemonade, and that's pretty good. So I decided to figure out what other people's problems were and how they turned that into something positive. And so that's when I decided to do the Use Your Lemon Challenge. And so that's pretty much where I can get different people to share their story on how they overcame a challenge or a lemon and turned it into lemonade. And so even though it's mostly on social media, I decided to do it here today. So even though we don't have actual lemons, because I like to toss those out when people are sharing their stories, I'd like for some of you to maybe share, even if it's not with starting a company, how you overcame a challenge and turned it into something positive. So if any of you would like to do so, then I'd be open to. Does anyone have one? Oh, so nobody in this room has had any challenges. All perfect lives. Oh, okay. I'm just gonna bring the mic. There you go.
Hi everyone. My name is Elizabeth Telfort. I am a grad student at St. John's University. So something that was negative that changed was I was applying to all these grad schools basically just because my mom holds education like super high. Like I didn't want to go to grad school at all. And she basically was like, you need to go, you need to finish your school, get your master's while you still can before you have a family, before you get married, all of that. So I was like, okay, let me stay at St. John's since I already know it. But you guys already know that student loans are a dub. So St. John's has this thing called grad assistance where they pay for your education and you get a stipend. So I was working in athletic for all 4 years of my undergrad education, and finally they were like, we can't hire you, we're trying to go in a new direction. So I was like, okay, how am I gonna pay for school? So I applied to every GA ship on the website, and then literally a week before school started, someone emailed me back like, hey, like we need you, like can you do this for us? And I'm getting a bigger stipend than I would have if I stayed in athletics. So that's turning my lemons into lemonade.
Okay. Would anybody else like to share a lemon? I saw a hand. Was there a hand over here? Oh, okay.
Hi, good morning. My name is Felicia Fort. One of the lemons was when I was in the process of writing my first book. I sent it to a publisher, and they was like, well, it's not really up to par. We don't want to publish it. So it gave me a little bit of discouragement, so I tossed it on the bed, and I didn't look at it. But I kept listening to motivational videos and knew that this book was something. Maybe I just needed more, putting more to it instead of just throwing it away, because that's basically what the publisher said. So a year later, I self-published it, and I got into 3 different schools as far as putting my book into their programs. And the lemonade was, don't let nobody tell you you can't or your product is not nothing. So my book is called The Mentor Model. It's tools to sustaining the mentor-mentee relationship long term. I have copies if you want any. But I have definitely, I'm a self-publisher, and I'm just saying, if a publisher says no, you're the self-publisher, so you said yes.
Thank you. So I think we might have time for one more if anybody wants to give one. Okay, we're good? Okay, thank you so much for sharing those. I honestly think I learned something every single time that I do this challenge, whether it's on social media or in person, so thank you. My third lesson is to dream like a kid. And so that kind of brings us back to the beginning. And so, to give this into perspective, can anybody name a dessert? How about a dessert? Cheesecake? Cheesecake pie? Okay, so we'll use cheesecake because I know my family loves cheesecake. So say that a kid wants, maybe we should use a more kid dessert. I don't know, do kids like cheesecake? Cupcake? Okay, I know you though. We gotta get some more ideas of kid desserts. I don't know, something that kids. Wait, what'd you say? Okay, brownies. We'll use brownies because my brother likes this. Okay, so let's say that a kid wants a brownie. A kid's gonna do like whatever needs to be done in order to get that brownie. They want that brownie, they're gonna figure out how they can get that brownie, whether it's like climbing on top of the counter to grab it, or just constantly asking a parent to get it for them. They want that brownie. But sometimes when adults think, okay, I want a brownie, then they're considering, I'm gonna have to pay for the gas fare to the bake shop, or I'm going to have to count the calories maybe, or I'm going to have to make sure that I account for the taxes or whatever. So the mindset of a kid is different from the mindset of an adult, because when an adult, we take all of the things that stopped us in the past and we realize when we think that it's gonna stop us from what we're working on now. But a kid realizes that anything is possible. And so I like to say that kids don't think inside or outside the box, we don't even see a box. And when you're dreaming like a kid, that means you're doing exactly what you want to do, and that's how you find your talent, that's how you find what you're good at. And so what you're good at, if it's contributing to something bigger, especially if it's a social cause, that's what I like to say is like your purpose. And especially if you enjoy what you're doing. And so for me, that was saving the bees. I thought when I started, I would have to choose between making money and having a stand or being able to contribute to honeybee populations. And so after the first stand, I realized that I could do both and that you could be what's called a social entrepreneur, which is someone who starts a company and has a social cause to it. And so right now, I'm trying to encourage kids and adults alike to figure out how they can solve problems, but also to solve like bigger problems as well. Because if every company that's around right now decided to have a social division or have a cause that, whether it's the environment, or whether it's homelessness, or like really anything, that we'd be in a much better place today. So we started the company for a purpose, and that's kind of what motivated me to keep on going, is even though we had difficulties, it's that like the bees still need my help no matter what happens to the company, so I have to keep on going. And then the next lesson is something that we've all heard before. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. So that's kind of what we just did. Some of you shared what your lemons were in life and how you made lemonade. So it's important to take something negative and turn it into something positive. And lastly, I like to say, don't be discouraged by life's little stings. Get back up and spread your wings. So you're going to have stings. Even though mine were literal stings, like one in my ear, one in my neck, and they hurt a lot, there can be other stings too that still hurt a lot. And it's important to take those stings and turn it and not let those stings stop you from doing what you enjoy or doing what you're working on. So I think we're doing also Q&A if you do have any questions for me. But if you'd like to learn more, figure out how you can help save the bees, or if you have any ideas, then you can join my mission or become a believer. And then we have, of course, social media. You guys look like a very hip crowd, so I'm guessing you have social media too. But we have social media, and then my website's Me and the Bees. And then I'm also going to be here. I know I have a stand out there too if you want to try it. But I'm going to be here, so if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them in person as well. But thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Mikaila. That was amazing. Oh, so we have Q&A for about 8 minutes. Does anyone have questions for Mikaila?
Hi, my name is Mikaila. I'm currently an undergrad at Brewer College. And you're a student too. You're very young. And I was wondering, between the work you do and your school life, how do you balance all of it? Because it is a lot.
So that's definitely one of my biggest challenges personally, is figuring out how I have time to make sure that I'm working with my company, make sure that I'm also a good student, and that I'm having fun, and I'm like a regular 14-year-old. So I guess it's a really important part of that is making sure that you have a great team. So my team is, my family, and then we also eventually we grew out of my mom and my dad doing like most of the business for me while I'm in school, but we grew to having like a sales team and an ops team and like accounting team. So eventually we had to grow. But when I'm in school, my parents are making sure that everything's running smoothly. The time that I usually spend on the company is during the summer, so that's when I do the demos and when I have time to join in on meetings. During school, my parents run it, and then I do presentations like right now or on Monday. So like on Monday, I have a presentation. So anytime I do that, I'm still held accountable for doing the work. So I still have to make up the work and then do it when I get back. And then there's also like sacrifices that I have to make. So sometimes we will miss a exam, like a test, and then I have to make it up when I get back. Or sometimes I can't go to a really cool presentation or conference because I have a really important testing week. So yeah, it's kind of choosing which ones you have time for, and then a really good calendar as well.
Does anyone have questions? I have a question for you, Mikaila. How has it been working with Damon John?
It's been really well. So he's a great mentor, and he helped us he has a lot of contacts, so whenever we need like someone for a different purpose, he always has contacts. He seems like he's connected to pretty much everyone, which is pretty cool. And even though he has a lot of companies that he's invested in, if you have a question, if you text him, he'll say, okay, maybe I'm on a call, but I'll call you right back afterwards. So he's a really good mentor.
Definitely, and I know your mom mentioned you guys have an agreement with Whole Foods. Can you talk about that?
So we're in about, I think it's like, is it 200 Whole Foods? We're in different Whole Foods around the state. So, excuse me? Yes, throughout the United States, we're in 1,200 stores, but that's including Whole Foods. Thank you. So that's including like Whole Foods and Natural Grocers and Wegmans, which I know is here on the East Coast. And then there's H-E-B, which is a store in the South, if anybody's from like Texas or anything like that. So those are kind of the main stores. And so my goal eventually is to get it so that everyone has access to it. And that's one thing that's pretty hard is like getting it distributed and making sure that we can get into as many stores, but also like stay in those stores and make sure that it's like getting sold off the shelves. So, yeah.
Does anyone? Oh.
Hi, my name is Sivia. My question for you is, how do you celebrate your accomplishments?
Have I celebrated our accomplishments? So actually this year, it's kind of our 10th anniversary of me coming up with the idea to do the lemonade stand. So we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. So this summer, we actually did a lot of traveling, so that was pretty fun. We went to Budapest, and we did a whole presentation conference there, and that was at an event called Brain Bar. And then we also went to Singapore, and then there's a conference called Dell Women Entrepreneur Network, so I spoke there. And we are coming out with a new flavor that's kind of exclusive in the South, so we're testing it out right now, and that's pretty exciting as well. So yes, we are celebrating our accomplishments.
Hi, my name is Lisa. First of all, congratulations to all your success. It's amazing.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure I was playing with Lego when I was 14.
I do too. But
it sounds like you have learned quite a bit in this journey. And imagine for a second if you had a time machine. What would you have done differently in this process? What was the biggest lesson learned that you wish you had done something slightly different?
Okay, so what would I have done? There's a couple things. So one thing that I've learned is that, and this is really important in businesses, is that you want to keep on top of the trends. So a lot of the time businesses try to catch up with the trends, making sure that they're going along with the trends. But one thing that I realized is that it's important not only to keep up with the trends, but also to make your own trends and to be a trendsetter. So that's one thing that I would have done earlier, even when I was a little kid, doing the lemonade stands, and I didn't want to do a lemonade stand because everyone else was doing only tables. But I realized after we tried actually putting like the lemonade stand at the fair that it did better. So it's important not to be the same as everyone else, even though it might be trendy. But sometimes it's important to be trendsetters and try something new, see if it works out. And then what I feel like, yeah, that's probably the most important thing that I would have been done differently, and that's like can be applied to so many different things. So yeah.
So we have time for one more question. Does anyone have a question? Sure.
Right. Hi. Hello. I'm Nawal. Okay, so I am super inspired, hearing this from a 14-year-old, and I'm too old to mention, by the way. How can I nurture my own kids to think the way you think?
Okay, so that might be a question for my parents. I always say that they should write like a parenting book or something, I don't know. But I guess one of the most important things that I've realized that my mom and my dad did when I was like saying, okay, I want to get this into stores, or I want to actually start a company or do a lemonade stand, even though it might have been like time consuming for them, helping me like build the lemonade stand and making sure I got time to paint it. It was that whatever I did, even if it wasn't completely possible, they said, okay, let's try it out. Or, okay, how can we change this? Or, like, why not test it out? So the first time I did a lemonade stand, I said, okay, today I want to do a lemonade stand like in front of the house. And so they said, well, you're going to have to figure out what ingredients you're going to have to buy, and you're going to have to figure out where you're going to do it, what's your recipe going to be. And even though the first batch of lemonade was awful, they said, okay, we can figure out a way to improve it. And it really did taste awful. But it was kind of, I guess it was, instead of shutting down ideas, kind of promoting them, having me try a bunch of different things and see what I enjoyed. But my mom's also here if you'd like to get any other things. Okay.
We actually have time for one more question.
How did you approach a strategy for attracting buyers or getting people to distribute your product?
Yeah, so that was really hard because it's hard going up to buyers or distributors and saying, okay, we have a product and it's started by a 14-year-old girl and it's social, so we donate a portion of the profits, but it's still going to be successful. So our goal was to kind of make sure that buyers saw the social part, and instead of thinking, okay, that's going to inhibit the company, that's the reason why it's going to grow. And so the story was a really important part of the company, and that was like the main thing. So a lot of the times people try to say, okay, my story's not important, how I started in a garage making skateboards or whatever, but that's sometimes the most important part. And so powerful storytelling is really important.
Time for another question. I know you mentioned this 3 times, but does anyone have any other questions?
Hi, Laura. My question is, since you talked about the pencils at first with the seeds, how does your company make efforts to stay green or globally aware, since that's becoming a huge trend now?
So yesterday was actually the youth climate strike, and so they had a really big one in Austin. I did a little speech on that, so I'm kind of refreshed on my facts. But we're a sustainable company, which is something that I like to say very proudly. So we use 100% recyclable packaging. So none of it ends up in landfills. It's all the metal caps are recyclable, the glass bottles are recyclable. Even though we sweeten it with honey, we also donate a portion to hives so they can promote their companies. I also have a nonprofit called the Healthy Hive Foundation. And so through that, we're working on saving the bees through research, education, and protection. So this is something I'm really interested about, but we're actually commissioning a researcher in California to research the effect of wildfires on bee populations and then pollution on bee populations. So we're trying to figure out what different factors are, killing the bees and how we can help prevent that. And then We also are working on education and then protection, so partnering with different companies and taking their land on campuses and turning it into a bee-friendly space. So, yeah, that's it. Okay.
Great job, Mikaila. That was an amazing presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. It was great information for everyone and things that they could look at for their own business.
Okay, and then thanks for being such an interactive crowd. I really enjoy speaking. If you'd like to try the lemonade, it's set up in the back, so I'm pretty sure I'll be there for the most part. And I'd love to talk to you. Thank you.